Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. Today, I just have some More Than Tracy T TikToks. I have been kind of more interested in her and Abby because of the whole Sam at Every Size scandal last week. I have tried multiple times to react to the More Than Tracy T podcast, but I seriously was falling asleep. I was trying to film right before this, and I was actually starting to fall asleep, like 20 minutes in. So I don't know. I think if I ever do that, I'm going to have to just edit her podcast down and just respond to specific things because it's boring. It's very, very boring. So let's go ahead and get into this. These are some TikToks. Let's just dive in.
Really fuck up. I think we all conveniently like to forget that losing weight can really fuck up your mental health in a lot of different ways. With the Ozempic craze and everything that's going on with that right now, I'm sorry.
So I will say it is difficult on a mental health level to lose weight because losing the weight does release hormones. We talk about it a lot on this channel, and those can affect mood and other aspects, typically in the form of feeling more angry or more depressed or more anxious. It's usually those three feelings that tend to uptick on a physical level due to weight loss, especially from a huge size. But let's just hear what she has to say about this.
To see people talk about it a little bit, and I just I don't know who needs to hear this, but my experience has been that mentally I cannot be at peace when I am constantly thinking about food. And when I am constantly monitoring my body and measuring its progress or its perceived success as it gets smaller.
So yeah, I would say I can't be happy when I'm extremely overweight and the hormonal activity of the fat itself is affecting me and causing me to see things in a darker light, causing me to live in flight or fight response, causing me to think that every single dynamic with every single person is some form of bigotry, is somebody out to get me, is somebody just, it's hard to relate to other people when you're in that state of mind. It's hard for people to like you as much, like if you're always a Debbie Downer, or if you're always tired and all these different things. So I found it's hard for me to be happy completely alone. It's hard for me to be happy unable to do basic tasks or unable to kind of take off, in life because I'm too big, because it's unhealthy and it's quite literally and metaphorically weighing me down. So that's what makes me unhappy. I find that regardless of if you're on a diet, the bigger you get, the more you are monitoring your body because you have to. So I find that to be a little bit disingenuous.
I'm not talking about my current self. I'm looking back into the past because I've been pretty much the same size for about 3 years. But if losing weight is something you decide to do or happen to do, be careful of your mental health because I am so serious right now.
Yeah, I think there's this idea that your mental health and physical health are completely separated, and I reject that. I reject it entirely. I think if you're going through grief, your body will suffer. And I think that if your body is going through a disease like hypothyroidism, your mind will suffer. They are very connected, and I think that it's very foolish of particularly the Western health system to not acknowledge the connection between mind and body. It's very strong, but she's definitely one of those.
I have never been more preoccupied and self-obsessed and anxious and hyper self-critical than when I was desperately trying to be smaller and succeeding.
I don't know. I have to, I don't believe you. That's all I'm going to say. I think it's hard. From what I've observed of you, you're very status conscious. I've listened to your podcast a little bit. Like I said, I almost fell asleep the second time I listened to it. But there's a lot of, you judge everybody in terms of like, you have a very hierarchical mind. So I find it incredibly hard to believe that you're not constantly plucking at your own feathers, because typically people who are competitive, you are always looking at yourself. And I know that because I'm that way myself. Like, I'm not even saying it as a dig. I'm just saying I don't believe you. That's all. I don't. I think that you're always critical of yourself. Maybe you think you feel a little worse, but it's only because you're the kind of person where if you can't succeed at something, then it's all a lie and it's a huge rejection of like you see it as like, I'm ambitious. If I could do it, or if I can't do it, then nobody can do it. When you probably just did it wrong, honestly. And you were unwilling to search for a different way, which that's your prerogative. But just because you failed at losing weight doesn't mean that every single person in the whole world will fail at losing weight, or that the whole thing is a scam. That's not true. So I think that that's what I see when I see you. I see you as that kind of person where if you couldn't do it, then that means no one can. It's not true. It just isn't. And she'll try to say that she doesn't feel that way, but I think deep down she does. Absolutely.
I have never had a worse relationship with food than when I had to morally approve of everything that went in my mouth. And maybe that doesn't happen to everyone. Maybe it's just an eating disorder thing and not a diet thing. But
okay, so I find it interesting because you say that you have PCOS, like I've observed. So I don't know if she's now saying that she has an ED, but I think honestly, Abby, you should make more content about that, because I have not heard you say that you have an ED, like in anything. I think it should be more obvious if that's like a part of your brand, because I'd love to hear that explained. Because as far as a restrictive ED, it's going to tend to lead you to be of a smaller size. And if it is BED, then you have to acknowledge that eating a lot of calories is in part what made you very big. So I don't know. I feel like she's trying to ride both lines there, where she's saying, I have PCOS and I have this ED and I have this and I have that. And it's just like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I've seen you try to say, well, of course I'm just this big because I have PCOS. And now you're saying you have an ED as well. It's just weird. It's weird to me. That's the kind of thing where I hear it and I think, like, you should be saying that every time you talk about it then.
a quarter of diets.
But I think that she's one of those people that she thinks that having any anxiety around food is an ED, which is hugely uneducated. EDs are like highly ritualized, long-term experiences that go on for at least 3 months. And people that have it very severely, they have a whole ritual. I was just talking to somebody who has BED, and she was like breaking down to me and crying, and just like, she's like, you don't understand. She's like, I eat, and then I'm just like, really, I feel so guilty about it, and I want to hide it, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. And I just told her, I was like, look, you have BED. It's common within the disorder. It's common. Like, what you're feeling is not, you're not a freak for feeling that way. You just have an ED. That's somebody who has an ED. There's rumination behind it. There's all this stuff that goes, and there's rituals. There's everything involved in it. And it typically, you just have to find another coping mechanism. That's really what the root of it is. It is a coping mechanism. And it can be incredibly difficult to stop, but that's what it is. And I think when you guys say things like that, like, it is kind of offensive, honestly, because just having a little bit of anxiety about the calories you're eating is not even close to having an ED. It just isn't. And I get that EDs can be a spectrum, but it's still, it's just not the same. Like, stop cheapening that, or stop miseducating people, because I don't like it when they talk about it this way, because they make everybody feel like they have an ED, and that's not true. It's not that common. Not everybody has one. You know, if you guys are wondering if you do you have a whole ritual? Do you have a structure in your mind? Do you have a mental matrix? Do you have rituals where you literally stare at your body and think about how much you hate your body? Do you ruminate about things for hours, right? Like, these are the kinds of experiences that somebody with an ED has. And yes, there are many people, especially women, that do have that experience. But I don't think that, you know, it's not the most common thing in the world. And if you want to cut your calories or like get in deficit for a fitness goal or something, that does not mean that you have an ED. Like, that is way oversimplifying it to a level that it's offensive. It's actually offensive.
Results in eating disorder. All I'm saying is, if your body is taking up a huge amount of space in your brain,
then you're saying that that person has an eating disorder, which isn't necessarily true either. Just thinking about how your body looks, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have an ED. It is a symptom of it. But like I said, there's a whole host of things that go into it. And just because you say, well, that's not what I'm saying, even though that's what you heavily implied, that's another thing I can't stand that fat acceptance activists do constantly. Is, well, I'm not saying that. You just did, though. You implied it. You're speaking emotionally, and you're speaking in a way that is making people think that this is what you're saying. And then you just say, well, that's not what I'm saying. Okay. All right. Well, I'm not saying you're a liar. Okay. I'm just heavily implying it. It's annoying.
And if your self-worth on any given day is determined by a certain body check, please be careful. Please check in with yourself. Please don't let it slide out of control, because it can be really hard to get your life back at that point.
I would say don't let a massive amount of obesity get out of control, because it is very hard to get your life back. If you want to get out of supermorbid obesity, it's possible, but it's difficult. So just don't think it's not important, or don't think that, oh, well, if I have any feeling of anxiety around food at all for any reason on any given day, well, that means I have an ED. No. It's annoying. Okay. So I don't know what this one is. I put them in random order, so let's just get into it.
Let me explain. This is the latest installment of my series called Good Faith, where I take a question that was not asked in good faith and I answer it in good faith. But in all honesty, I think this is really tricky. I think a lot of...
Okay, the question was, is dating a fat man settling? So let's see what she says.
Times fat people are told that, oh, well, you can just date another fat person or some other type of person who's considered like undesirable too. Like, you don't have to be alone forever. You can always date someone else who is also undesirable. And it's really hard for us as fat people to talk about that without throwing other fat people under the bus. But what I think...
Then just don't talk about it. Just say, well, first of all, I'm not trying to teach you guys how to lie, but for me personally, I'm not like, there are certain physical attributes that are important to me that I care about a lot. I don't need to get into it because it doesn't really matter, but I'll just say that weight is not necessarily in that category. Like, I care about it from a health perspective, definitely, like 100%. Like, I would care even if my partner was just chunky or just had, was like overweight on the border of obese. Like, I wouldn't, especially as I get lower and like more fitnessy with time, I wouldn't want my partner to settle for that in themselves. Like, I want my partner to be as healthy as they can be and that kind of thing, but it would not deter me from dating them in the first place. And I'm not trying to say like, oh, I would try to fix the person, blah, blah. Like, it's more so about like the diet aspects that would lead to that. And I think it's important to exercise. And there's just certain values that I've developed as a result of starting my weight loss journey that I would definitely share with a partner. And I'm sure that there are values that my partner would share with me. Part of dating and part of knowing anybody is learning from each other. So that would be something that I would offer if a person was bigger like that, just for health reasons. But aesthetically, it's not necessarily like something that's on the top of my list. I don't care that much. So if somebody told me that, I'd be like, well, okay, like if I'm attracted to them in other ways, absolutely. Like, but I'm not going to sit here and act like it would be good to date a partner that's super morbidly obese and all this stuff. Like, I don't think I would do that. And it's not, I mean, I don't think it looks as good. I'm going to be honest. But I've been honest about myself, too. I don't think I look the best, you know? And I don't think I looked really good when I was super morbidly obese. I don't think it's a good look at all, actually. But at lower levels of it, it's not as much of an issue at all. So that's kind of what I would say. That is like a very long, complicated statement. But it's like, if somebody is really into somebody that has abs, like, they have a right to be into that too. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. If a fat person is like, I want my partner to have abs, it's like, good luck. Good luck finding it. If you find it, you might find it. If you do, good for you. Like, whatever, right? I don't know. It's weird.
Is that if you are telling someone, if you are a person who believes being fat is less than, and you're telling a fat person to date another fat person who is also less than, then yeah, you are telling them to settle. But I also really think...
I think it also comes from a sort of fat acceptance idea that fat people will always be fat. And so it's kind of like, some people say, well, you should date somebody that's genetically similar to you or something like that, which that's kind of like a fat acceptance take that I wouldn't agree with at all, because some people do say it that way. Like, I know, especially, this is going to sound harsh, but I don't know every single dating demographic, okay? I'm not trying to say that I do. But I'm going to say something very specific and very niche. Hopefully I said that right for once in my life. You guys always get on my case. I'm going to be the next Amber Lynn one day, and everybody's going to talk crap about how I say niche. But anyways, in the dating realm, very recently, there have been times where I have talked with gay Gen Z. So very, very specific, okay? And I see in that demographic of people, they highly believe that weight is out of, like, can never change. So I think when you have that type of perspective, it can be like something that I don't agree with, or something that I would critique in what somebody else is saying. I'd say, no, anybody can lose weight. You can lose weight. It's not a static thing at all. So you don't necessarily have to date a fat person, or you don't necessarily have to do this, or you don't have to necessarily do that. What I will say is, most people who are very fit, they have certain values, and they're going to want somebody with a similar set of values. And that's just facts. And that's fine. That's what I would say. But yeah, I could see a Gen Z gay saying something like that to somebody, and they would say it from the perspective of, well, it will never change, so just meet somebody at your level who will also never change. It's not true. It doesn't work. Anyways.
That we as fat people need to divest from this, like, hierarchy where the people with the six packs are on top or whatever, and, like, look for genuine love in relationships if we want to be in relationships. Because those other ones, not only are the people who are shallow not going to go for you, but also the people who are shallow are not good partners. And
okay, so I don't know. It's weird because she's doing that weird doublethink, deceptive thing again. Did she not just make a dig at fat people? Because she said, well, somebody shallow is not going to go for you. So what does that mean? So that means you're fugly if you're fat, according to More Than Tracy T. I think a fat person, if they're pretty, they can have a shallow person go for them. I don't think that that's, you know, there could also be a lot of cases where somebody likes you specifically for your size, which can be a huge issue if you know, within all the health considerations. So that's not true at all. That is really stupid. Very short-sighted. But I think it comes from Abby wanting to be like, well, my boyfriend isn't shallow, so my boyfriend likes me, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, Abby, like, I am not trying to give Abby praise, but I don't think Abby is, like, the ugliest person in the whole world. Like, I don't, you know? I'll put it to you that way. I do think someone shallow could find Abby attractive, but it's not going to be somebody who's not into fat people, you know?
If you are with them and you gain weight, then they might leave you. So the best thing to do is either...
Well, and it can go the other way too. If you lose weight, they might leave you too. It's tricky. Because typically, people like a certain aesthetic. And so that can be tricky in dating when you have such a huge shift. And there really isn't any other shifts that can occur, especially like for me. It's made dating very difficult because I'm going from being super morbidly obese to not at all. That's a huge jump. And that's very difficult because people who are into me on this side of the spectrum, they're probably not going to be into me on the other side of the spectrum and vice versa. So it's very difficult. It's extremely difficult because it can change and it's such a drastic change. And there really isn't a lot of ways that you can change that way to that extent. You know, I'm not talking about losing 20 pounds here. It's like more on the 200 level, you know, and that's a lot. Like, so, and I understand that, and I try to be understanding of other, you know, in the dating world of guys' perspective on me and stuff, because it's a huge shift. So
out casual sex if that's what you like, or seek out a relationship that's really genuine and strong if that's what you like. And don't let the hierarchy of it all play into it, because other fat people can be amazing partners. People who are not considered traditionally beautiful.
I agree not to let the hierarchy of it all determine your dating preferences, because it's just stupid. Like, at the end of the day, you're the one sleeping with the person. So I agree with that 100%, but when you are super morbidly obese or when you're very big, it does say certain things about your lifestyle. Just as if you're really in shape, it would say certain things about your lifestyle. Like, there are a lot of people who don't want to date somebody fit because they're constantly at the gym or they're constantly doing things, you know, like that. And that can be irritating to a lot of people. And so it's like you can't like the muscles but not like what it takes to have them, you know, and that's cringe too. It can be cringy all around, but at the end of the day, like, there are certain things that do attribute to more than just looks. And I think it takes a very, like, dumb black and white stance to not think that somebody's physical shape has anything to do with their lifestyle, and that would not cause any friction at all. It's not true. It's not a good way to look at it.
Can be incredibly beautiful to you if you fall in love with one. And I think there's a thing that happens to a lot of people. It has happened to me, where you are presented with a romantic option in whatever way. Maybe somebody sets you up, maybe they have a crush on you, maybe, you know, they ask you out or something, and you go, oh, you know, I can't consider them because this would be embarrassing for me because they are also fat, or something like that. That happened to me in college, and I really had to sort out in my mind, like, do I not want this person?
Scarring and very hypocritical. Just have to say that, for one. And for two, I don't know. I think it's very strange to have that level of entitlement. It's just strange to me, personally. But it does happen a lot. Like, there are a lot of very fat people who are like, I want somebody with a six-pack. Like, you see it a lot. I'm not personally like that myself, but there are a lot that are. There are. So, I don't know. I'm not saying that Abby wanted a six-pack, but it's just like, You know, I saw a comment on my channel say, like, the most fat phobic people in the world are other fat people. And to a certain extent, that's true. You know, and the whole Jordan, Sam at every size debacle kind of proved that, you know, in a lot of ways. It's kind of true.
Because I don't want them, or do I not want this person because we're both fat and I feel like I deserve better? I think we really owe it.
Scarring. Very harsh. And hypocritical, because it's like, if you feel that way, then lose the weight. Like, that's fine, you know. For me, dating and all that crap, it hasn't, you know, is so minor on the reasons why I'm doing it. I don't know that wanting dating options and stuff is like a strong enough reason to keep you going through all the seasons and trials and tribulations of especially a very long-term weight loss effort of something like 200 pounds. I don't know that that will carry you through, because it's just so minuscule in comparison to like other reasons. But for me, like my health and stuff, that's the number one reason why, and that will carry me over. So it's like all this dating stuff, it doesn't matter to me. It's like I'm just going to keep going because I have to, basically. And that's kind of the mindset that I have. And whatever happens, happens in the other areas of my life. It's just, it is what it is.
To ourselves to unpack our own internalized fat phobia or ableism or racism in dating. Because we know what it's like to be treated like we're settling for less. But again, if somebody who thinks being fat is less tells you to go date another fat person, that person is telling you to settle.
Okay, whatever. I don't know. She's very concerned. She's a very hyper-competitive person. If they're telling me to settle, then I have to prove them wrong and all this stuff. It's like, okay. I just think maybe put some of that ambition towards getting your health under control. And that might be a little harsh to say, but hey, I'm going to say it. So let's see what this person says. This is another like weight loss one. I'm happier losing weight.
This, it may be a controversial opinion, but I had to lose weight to be happy.
Of course you did. That makes perfect sense. And I recommend you watch the whole video I stitched because it's a really good explanation of this. Now, before you say, of course, it's because she's healthier, hold up a second, because you can become healthy.
Hold up. We got to cover that up, y'all. Got to cover it up. Ugh, the health isn't real.
Without losing weight, you can lose weight without becoming healthier. They aren't the same thing necessarily. But weight loss?
Not necessarily, but as a super morbidly obese person, you will hit a glass ceiling of health. You will reach a point where you cannot get any better than where you're at. And quite frankly, it will not be good enough because it's still rough. Even at the healthiest you can be at that size, it's still not good enough.
Will always come with something else, and that is like increased societal approval of you. You will fit the beauty standard better. You will fit in clothes better. You will fit in spaces better. You will be praised by people much, much more. You will be seen as a more morally upstanding human being.
There's her obsessed with morality. I would say like, yeah, that stuff matters, but I don't think it matters to everybody as much as it matters to Abby. Like, I feel like she's definitely, you know, she wants approval and praise. And for me, like, look, I'm very introverted, I've said. I am very disagreeable. On the Swiftie spectrum, there's pathological people pleaser over here, and there's argumentative antithetical dream girl over here. I'm way over here. Okay, I'm the argumentative antithetical dream girl. Not a people pleasing bone in my body. Literally never has been. So for me, all the reasons that she's giving, I literally could give 2 craps less. And I'm sick of this narrative that everybody who loses weight is doing it for approval. It is so dumb. Like, honestly, it's so dumb. I hate it. I really do. Because I'm like, no. So that's why I'm here. I'm going to represent, you know, the midnight rain side of weight loss, not the sunshine side, because I feel like my side of this is not shown ever. And I get it. It's because introverts typically don't like to like put everything on blast like I do. But I think I've like just been taught. I have so many extroverts in my life, and so I don't know. I'm like, whatever, I'll do it. I can do it. Because to me, it's like, we need to break this narrative of like, everybody's doing it for approval. Everybody's doing it because they want to be liked. It's like, honey, I am doing it for my health. You know, there's a possibility of me getting hate for getting healthier and all that in today's climate. So it's like, you guys apply hate to people that decide to lose weight. So it's the opposite of approval for a lot of us, which for me, I'm not saying I've been hated at this point. I haven't, but I could be, you know, and if it happens, it won't mean shit to me because I don't care. I'm not doing this for other people's approval. That's not my reason. It's just cringe to me. It's so like, it's simplistic. And it's like, not everybody is like you, Abby. Like, please get a little bit of awareness of that fact.
And being accepted by your community, we as humans need community. That is going to make you happier. There are people who lose weight and are not happy. And what happens with those people is that it really...
I'm going to say something very controversial. I'm not necessarily losing weight for my happiness. I'm losing weight for my health. Those are two very different things. I'm losing the weight because I want to be around a long time, just so I can be a thorn in the side of those that I hate. No, I'm just kidding. But am I kidding? No, I'm just kidding. But like, I want to be around a long time, and I want to have enough energy to fight with people, and I'm just kidding. And be the argumentative, antithetical dream girl that I am. I want to be arguing for as long as humanly possible. So that's why I'm doing it. It has nothing to do with happiness. You know, it's like, I'm miserable when I'm fat. I'm miserable when I'm losing weight. What? Big what? It's a lateral move, you know? It's like, no, but my health is not a lateral move. And so that's huge. And it's like, I just think we need to get so much of this, like, emotion out of it. It drives me insane. Like, you're not always going to be happy. You're not. Get over it.
It bothers them, the cognitive dissonance of being rewarded for this thing. Like, it really bothers them how conditional the acceptance of themselves is on what their body looks like. That's also very understandable.
Yeah, I haven't seen that as much at this point. I'll have to get back to you guys on that if I lose the weight and I just feel bitter and I'm just like, oh gosh, you didn't pay attention to me before and now you are, and like, I don't see myself going in that direction because, again, like, I don't live for the approval of others. So it's like, if I have it, great. If I don't have it, great. I don't care. I just don't. And I certainly would never factor that into why I'm losing weight. I'm not losing weight for approval. It has nothing to do with why I'm losing weight. So if I get more approval after losing the weight, it has nothing to do with why I chose to do it in the first place. So why do I care? Why would I care? I don't. It's like, stop assuming that everyone is like you. Just please. It's just driving me nuts.
And the other reason is because if what you're doing to make yourself lose weight is making you fucking miserable, you are not going to get...
Well, being that fat is very miserable too. So I don't know. You know, I got to choose between this misery and that misery, you know? It's like, I'm not miserable anymore. I'm just not thriving. Like, I'm kind of in the middle of situations. But it's like, in the past, I was miserable. It was miserable. I was miserable. But it's like, I'm miserable if I'm losing weight or not. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's like, I think you have to just understand, like, maybe I'm going to be miserable regardless, you know?
Happier. Exactly.
And that doesn't mean to give up. It just means, like, hey, get your health in order. And then maybe certain other aspects will get better. But don't just eat and eat and eat for the sake of relief that is never going to come. It doesn't come. The eating doesn't work either. The not going to the gym doesn't work either. You know, and certainly trying to harangue and guilt everybody else into dating you certainly isn't going to make you happy. So I'm just saying, pick your poison.
So I do not recommend losing weight as a way to be happy, but I do recommend we all take a minute to sit with the fact that we as a society are so much nicer to smaller people that weight loss almost becomes like an imperative for having a good life. At least in a...
I think it's just because it's so comically ridiculous. Like, I remember when I was really considering it, especially as I've lost weight, I was just like, gosh, like how ridiculous it is that I thought that I could just function and be okay at such a huge size. Because as I get distance from that, I just realized like I made things so much harder for myself than they had to be. And it's like some of that can be social barriers, but a lot of it is physical barriers too. And so I don't know. I mean, will losing weight make you happy? Not necessarily, but will staying the same weight make you happy? No, it won't. But happiness is fleeting, you know? So I think it's just kind of weird anyways. We just gotta live, you know?
A lot of people's eyes without a lot of self-examination and hard work and thick skin. The world is so unfriendly to fat people that changing your body size in whatever way...
Okay, I mean, it depends on where you live, but if it's as bad, like if I truly believed it was as bad as what you guys say it is, then I probably would have lost the weight a long time ago. Like if I just could not even attempt to live my life because the social barriers were just so incredibly strong, I would have done it years ago. But for me, I don't care and I'm still doing it. So it's like, I don't know. Like a lot of it is in your head. And a lot of it can be due to hormonal issues that have to do with being big that make you feel more self-conscious. Because you're just anxious for no reason. And then you try to find a reason for why you're anxious. That happens a lot to very fat people. And and then you just start projecting things into every situation. It's not good. It just isn't good. Because there were a lot of times where I felt so judged and I wasn't even being judged. There was a lot of times when I felt like I was so incredibly unpopular in junior high, for example. And people remembered me as being very popular. So it's like, it was in my head. And that can be the case, you know? And it's one of those issues that you just don't really have to have. So it's like, why make life even harder?
Because I don't know what she's doing. I only saw the stick. Is for a lot of people something that genuinely will make them happier, whether or not it affects anything else in their life besides how they are materially treated.
Okay, well that's really dumb. I don't think that approval and stuff is that important because approval is so fleeting and you can lose people in like a heartbeat. So you always gotta like keep a good head on your shoulders because, you know, there's been a lot of like fat activist types that decide to lose weight and then they're hated by their audience immediately after. It's like, not everybody's doing this for approval. I hate that you say that. I really do. But again, everything has to go back to your narrative. So with that, you guys, I'm going to go. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I will see you guys again soon. Bye.